Good afternoon, teachers and educationists. A warm welcome to you all. I am Priyanka Mukherjee, and I'm extremely elated for today's webinar because it's a topic that resonates with me very deeply. And Cambridge, with a legacy of hundreds of years and a presence in 170 plus countries across the globe, our mission statement has always been the pursuit of excellence in research, in learning. We explore, we collaborate, and we innovate to spread knowledge, spark inquiry, and aid understanding. And teachers of tomorrow, if all of you have had the chance to look at our platform, Teachers of Tomorrow as a platform lends itself to create that community of teachers where we can learn from each other, we can collaborate with each other, and most importantly, connect with experts through these webinars. And webinars provide us that kind of a platform where we can exchange ideas, learn from each other, as well as learn from leading experts in the domain of education. Taking that thought forward, we are extremely pleased, happy, elated to have with us Ms. Satija Joshi, with extensive teaching, training, and leadership experience of several decades across prestigious schools in India and abroad. And the webinar today is a crystallization and a coming together of her experiences of being a prolific teacher trainer. And the topic, like I mentioned at the outset, it has extreme resonance with teachers of today who are grappling with the urge to be as creative and as innovative as possible, notwithstanding the constraints and the challenges that they face in their day-to-day life in the classroom. So without further ado, ma'am, we are absolutely thrilled to have you. The floor is all yours. All yours.
Thank you, Priyanka, and thank you for having me here. I know time is limited, so I'm going to start right away. And I think the interaction at the end will be more meaningful if we have more time. So welcome to the session on innovation and creativity. Architecture slide, what a teacher must do and what a teacher should do. And as we go along this whole session, I'm going to what comes up next is going to be highlighted so you know exactly where you are. So let us start right away. Let's start with how does a school look at a teacher? So you've now been hired and you're teaching multiple boards. It could be any examination board. I understand that. And they want you to be the master of your craft. They want you to have subject knowledge. They want you to impart skills, and they want you to innovatively merge the two together. And this is something now that we are going to see how is it best to be done. Let's see what the teacher has to ask herself. So where is the finish line for the teacher? Do I say it is my class understanding, or my class is understood, okay, I'm done? Am I going to say it's the end of the school day, I'm done? Is it preparation for further study so that my students are better prepared for university? Or is it something more, and how much more? And this is where the must and should come in. We must teach the subject to the best of our ability. That's taken for granted from us, from the schools. But what is should is the degree of organized magic and madness that we bring into our classes. This is innovation and creativity, and this is something that we should do. And must is something that is taken for granted. Should is this sphere that we should get into of organized magic and madness. What then is organized magic and madness? Of course, it's innovation. You're innovating on your feet. You're innovating beforehand. You're thinking outside the box. You're improvising as your class goes on. You've taken every professional growth opportunity that comes your way. You're going to be a risk taker and a mold breaker. And finally, your passion is going to shine through. And believe me, you have time to do all of this, no matter which syllabus or what time constraints you may be facing. I'm going to take you through a little pedagogical research study. This is a CIE study on innovation and creativity. So it gives us the structure as to how to be innovative and creative in our classrooms. So I'm quoting now from pieces of the study. I will share the link with you on my last slide so you can refer back to the paper. And Kaufman and Beghetto have developed 4 categories of creativity, which help us as teachers to reveal the different nuances as we go along. Now, this is the most important one. It's the mini creativity. And this means we have to be observant of experiences, actions, events, everyday things that occur around us. For some strange reason, people have this thing that, oh, I'm creative or I'm not creative, or creativity is something huge. But the point is, if you're curious about your everyday experiences and actions, it can then go to the little c, which is acting with flexibility, intelligence, and novelty in the everyday that you see. And I'm going to give you an example over here. I was driving to school and I saw this little girl tapping at my window and saying, "Can you give me some money?" And I suddenly thought, how would it be if I was that girl? Here I am living on poverty line, and we were doing this topic on poverty. So I went to class and I said that, I know there are YouTube videos that show you that adults have lived on poverty line for a whole year, but in school context, that's not possible. So how about we actually eat for $1 a day for 1 day? And the exchange rate at the time was 75 rupees. So let us eat for 75 rupees for a day. And believe me, this led to a whole creative experience in the class. It was a very difficult thing for students to do. I had to do it with them. And I remember that most of us were hungry. And the principal of my school at the time said that, I knew I couldn't eat the school lunch. So he asked the receptionist to get me idlis from the cart outside. Students were saying, "Have you had your tea? Do you know tea bag is now 2 rupees?" And I said, "Yes, I know." And the food and nutrition teacher got involved because she was horrified, I think, that you could not get anything nutritious in this amount of money, and that junk food was actually the cheapest that made us eat for this. And what students then realized is that, how do I do this? Can I buy a whole sack of rice and take 1 spoon from it and count it as 2 rupees? How am I going to do this? Do I have money to buy the whole sack of rice? So a whole lot of understanding came through creative means. They made a whole meal plan with their families. Their families got involved. And it was just about acting flexibly and intelligently and novelly in an everyday experience. And the class came up with something original and meaningful to that particular unit. It had a very powerful impact on the students. So the other example I can give you is, I had noticed that a student was taking photos on her iPhone in a school bus. And so in class, I said, what about that our next assessment should be a photo essay? Let's not have a written essay. Let's have a photo essay. And photo essay idea per se is not new, but what evolved from it, what the class then said is, do we take the photo? Do we find the photo? Do we make a photo essay? Is it just one startling photo that reveals everything we have learned about this unit? How do we assess a photo? Do we then get our art and design teacher involved? We have a photography club. Does he give us some tips beforehand? And so it became a whole creative project and a new formative assessment that we hadn't tried before. So the little C and the mini C actually makes us more creative in our everyday experiences. The next C is the Pro C creativity, and everybody knows by now that it takes 10,000 hours to be the master of your craft, which is about 10 years. But the thing is that from day one, you have to start creating your own toolkit. I would call it your magic box. Start putting in your everyday observations, ideas, whatever it is that you have tried, journal it, put it down, and every time you try it, believe me, they're going to be, every batch is going to have some new ideas. Put those modifications, your student ideas into it, and you're going to have a magical toolbox. So you have to start from day one of your teaching career, and in 10 years, you're going to be a total pro. So I now have this really huge magic box of my own, and everyone will have it in due course. Of course, the big C is reserved for the Einsteins, the really magnificent people who are an elite few, but we are here talking about how do we go through the mini and the small C's along our way as teachers. So this is the question I'm going to ask you. You can type your answers in the chat box. What is the difference between creativity and innovation? So I'll just give you like a couple of seconds to start putting your thoughts down. Priyanka, do you want to see
I
if
will read it
anything's
out,
coming up?
ma'am. I'm just waiting
Yeah.
for the response. Everyone, please share your response in the chat box. What is the difference between innovation and creativity? Any thoughts?
Any thoughts, any clues,
So there's
anything?
one response, ma'am. Innovation is a new thing. Creativity is doing things differently. This is
Okay,
one response. Another response is novelty is innovation. And
okay,
another response is creativity is the key to innovation. Interesting.
right,
And
right,
then another response, innovation means bringing new things in work, and creativity means to do anything in a creative way.
right.
Doing things using resources. I think there's a plethora of responses, ma'am.
Yes, I'm so
Innovation
happy.
can, yes, ma'am. Please, please. Yeah, sorry to cut.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. So this is great. There are
Just
different
one more
ways.
response, ma'am.
Yes,
Just one more response. Creativity is about imagination, while innovation is about implementation. That was really,
absolutely.
yeah, that was interesting.
Absolutely hit the nail on the head. So creativity is about imaginative ideas, but these ideas could remain in your magic box, right? It's only when you actually implement it that it becomes an innovative idea. So don't hold those ideas in your box, just bring them out and start implementing it. The thing is, don't be scared, because your students are going to be fantastic. They're going to aid you, they're going to help you. And each new batch, you're going to have a most, different kinds of ideas from this core idea that you have observed and you're going to try out. This is continuation of the paper that is there. And it says that this is a double-headed arrow. And though creativity is right at the top, also remember you need to be creative to help your students understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, remember. So you cannot say, oh, you first remember and finally I will be creative. So to me, it is more a mixture. It's more circular rather than saying up and down. And that is why it is a double-headed arrow, because creativity can fit in anywhere. It's not necessary that you have to go through these other parts before you reach being really creative in your classrooms. I'm just going to, this is in the paper, but I'm now going to just write it on a different slide so it's easier to see. There are certain misconceptions about creativity. Somehow people seem to think, oh, it's limited to the creative arts department. But no, it applies in every subject. And some people feel, oh, it's, I'm not talented enough to be, I'm just not. And it's a skill that has to be learned. Start with creating your toolkit and your magic box from your daily observations. And I know some people feel that, oh, this is meaningless. This is fun. It's just fun for the kids, but it's a lot of hard work. It brings out a lot of thinking capacity, and that's why it says thinking skills. And you need a solid field of knowledge in your subject. You cannot just go in there and say, okay, you need to know it thoroughly. And you need to simulate and stimulate your students to do these creative ideas. One of the things, misconceptions, is that creativity requires a lot of resources. It requires a lot of money. And that is why, to me, this next picture was very, very important. This was a government school teacher, and this was during COVID. And she wanted her student to actually see what she was marking as she was marking it. So she yanked out a fridge tray, found two boxes, put it on on two boxes, and put a phone on it, her mobile phone. She put the paper below the fridge tray, and the student could see what she was marking. So all of us have fridge trays, but we don't think of, oh my God, this was a way I could actually make the student see what I'm marking as I go along. So you don't need large amounts of resources. You could just be completely creative and innovative with very little that you have. I'm going to give you a practical example of how I innovated an economic activity for an online class. And since I now have a captive audience of 300 people, I can't let you go without an economics class, So, yeah. This was the activity I used to do in class. The source is games economists play. And I used to have 20 fish in the community lake. My community lake was a carpet in the classroom. And I had 10 those binder clips, big binder clips, and 10 small binder clips. They were my fish. And the students had 1 minute to fish. And I gave them 1 rupee for every small fish they fished and 2 rupees for every big fish. And I gave each one of them a fork. That was their fishing tackle. And they had to pick those fish up. They had to pick the binder clips with a fork. And if they started fishing in the first 30 seconds, this was the revenue they would get. However, if everyone just sat still for 30 seconds and started fishing in the next 30 seconds, their revenues would double. Okay, so you had to sit still, but then everybody had to sit still. And this was the game that they had to do. And the revenue from the person who came back first, I would count their revenue first. And when the fish was over, the rest of the people would go hungry. Now, what do we do? This was COVID. It was online. I couldn't do this in person. So I said, no, I have to innovate this for the online class. So I told the students that, okay, we are going to go fishing. And they're like, Miss, you do realize we are stuck to our screen. I said, no, the fish is going to be big spoons and small spoons in your kitchen. And the minute I say go, the same rules apply. Run to your kitchen, get as many big spoons and small spoons, and come back. So nothing should hold you back. As the situation evolves, you can evolve and be creative in the new scenario. So then I said, this was the content that we were covering. And should you compete? Should you collude? Should all of you sit still for 30 seconds so that all of us are better off? Believe me, I have played this game for 25 years or maybe, I don't know, more, but nobody has sat still for 30 seconds. Okay, they have all run madly and fished like crazy. And I then asked them to write their dominant thought at the end of the game. And you can see that they were troubled because they trusted nobody. They realized it was tough to make economic decisions. Some of them said my kitchen was far away. This is not a level playing field. They accused the government, that's me, of not creating a level playing field. And some people were worried about the sustainability of it, that if we ate all the fish today, what happens tomorrow? Some people were like, no, capitalism still rocks. Some win, some lose. That's life. There was also some people who said, I was hungry, and they were very worried that nobody cared about them. And of course, they are all looking forward to your next class because they're saying, when's the next game? When's the next class? So this was an activity that each of these responses led to a new discussion topic, because when we came to sustainability, the question, we went back to the game, we all ate the fish. What happens tomorrow? But at that moment in time, nobody cared. It's because I created this hyper environment of competition. I said, go, 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 go. But the students needed to say, no, we are not going. Let's wait for 30 seconds. Let's think this through. But it's very, very hard for them. Okay. So, this was the game that I innovated. And this is what happens when you have a whole toolkit. You can pick it out and look back and say, oh, I did this 5 years ago. I can now reinvent this. All right. So I'm going to take you to another idea, which is called an irritant gallery walk, which is how do we develop creativity in our students? And one of the ideas is if you give them an area or a topic and you say, what irritates you the most, let's say about banking, or if you narrow this down to the area in your subject, then people write it down. You put the irritants up as a gallery walk. Don't pressurize them. Keep talking about it. And at the end of the year, students are going to come up with a creative solution to an irritant that has been bugging them. So in one of the classes, a student had written, what irritates me the most is that students are not segregating their garbage, though we have a dry bin and a wet bin. And some of the ideas that they came up with, let's have a basketball net above the dry waste so that people use it as a game and chuck their pieces of paper through the net, and we'll get more compliance. So you can see that even an irritant gallery walk will make your students have creative ideas. You need to create the classroom environment. You cannot be like, oh, you can't, have fun with this. You can't speak out of turn, because sometimes when somebody is struck with a creative idea, they just need to burst it out. We are going to see that, do we need laughter in the classroom? What kind of environment aids creativity? Is the laughter delightful or distracting? Well, we don't want the laughter to be mean or, sarcastic, but it is when they're truly believing that they've come up with something great, then there's a whole outburst of really fun and new ideas come up. So you should let that environment be there. One of the things you could do is, of course, what we all do is emulate other teachers and say, oh, this is great. This is my rock star teacher. If I follow this, I'm going to be a great creative teacher. And the Zoom doesn't support this, but I'm going to put this up. Please, see this. Conan O'Brien's commencement speech at Dartmouth College 2011, because he said he's a comedian, and every comedian tries to emulate their hero, but in a way they can't, because they are themselves. And when you can't really emulate something else, but in a way you become your own person, and that then is your unique style, and that becomes you as a creative teacher. So yes, start off by emulating your rock stars, but your uniqueness, your quirks, you become the creative, unique teacher, right? That somebody else wants to then emulate. Why is it that I'm really rushing through this, because I think we are almost at the end of the time. And why don't we actually share a lot of ideas? Because we are scared somebody will take them and run with it, so they're scared of plagiarism. And I would say that don't be, so long as you tell your students, give credit to the original idea, but then that idea evolves and evolves and evolves, and it becomes your own. A good piece to read is Jennifer Gonzalez, Cult of Pedagogy. I'm going to put that link up, and it helps your students and you to understand what is plagiarism, ensure that you are crediting the person in your source material, and then say that you have now evolved with these creative ideas. Here we have Albert Einstein, who says, of course, it's the supreme art of the teacher. It's you, it's us, to awaken the joy in creative expression and knowledge. And I would really like to thank my team, which is Surabhi Banerjee, Preeta S. Kumar, for helping me put this slide together. I know I've rushed through all of it because I have a whole box of these magical creative ideas, but in half an hour, it was really, really hard to. Plus, we want to hear your voice. So I want to give a lot of time for that. And these are the references. Please do read the CIA research paper. It's chapter 4. It's called Innovation and Creativity. Jennifer Gonzalez's Cult of Pedagogy. If you haven't been reading her, she's amazing. And Connor O'Brien's commencement speech tells you how you should be your own unique, quirky, individual creative teacher. In his case, comedian, of course. So Priyanka, I think I have to stop because it's like time. But let's hear some voices because that's always more interesting. So I'm going to leave the reference slide up and you can take some questions that people have put into the chat box. And I'm sorry for rushing this through because I could have another whole series on this.
So, ma'am, just to let everyone know, this is perhaps a start. We will have another session, like a follow-up session to this very soon. But today, of course, we have captured the key points, but more elaboration on this we will have at a later session, ma'am, for everyone.
Right.
Ma'am, tremendous appreciation pouring in the chat boxes for the session, ma'am. That I think I'll just start with some of the questions.
Yes.
There's a question from Ashik Elahi. Majority of times, teachers find being sarcastic to students helps them elevate their game. What do you think about it?
Never, never, never. In my view, and that's my view, sarcasm is not a good tool. It doesn't, in my view, it doesn't do, no. I think that the student may go home and may not like it. I mean, I have never used sarcasm. I have never used sarcasm, and I don't think that we should use sarcasm. These are kids. It should be something that everyone is comfortable with. And if they fear that you might be sarcastic to them because you might not be, you might just have made this comment yourself to be funny. But then later on, they may say, oh, I have a creative idea, but I'm not sure how the teacher is going to react. It will hold them back. So my view, my personal view, I wouldn't be. Sarcasm is not a good tool for me. I mean, that's my personal view.
Ma'am, another question is, how do you nurture creativity in students in a classroom which is a mixed bag?
Absolutely. So you mean different abilities, right? So when actually what I have found is these kind of creative ideas, it helps the most in the differentiated class because there are people who are not very good with writing 900-word essay, but have the most fantastic, they scored the best in the photo essay. So you are actually giving them different opportunities for different people's learning styles And I have found that they have all, especially things like role play, or you've got these crazy ideas where you have to just put one line to capture the essence of something. I found that people who would normally not speak up would actually come up with these ideas when you've had to write it down. So it engages everyone, because you have created that atmosphere that it's perfectly all right. You know, you could say whatever it is that you want. So it has worked. From my experience, it really helps people with different abilities.
Thank you, ma'am. One more question is from Maria, ma'am. How do we convince the school to let us use our own creativity?
Right.
Times it may not work also, but that's the question.
Yes. So my first slide was, how does the school look at a teacher, right? And I think that it's just in your first year that, and I want to stress here, it is not either or. It's not that you're this great rock star creative teacher, but your grades are going to be bad. I want to say here that it's and. So you can be creative and get fantastic grades. In fact, you are going to get fantastic grades, because once the students are engaged, they are going to be like, oh my God, I need to read more on this topic. And they are going to come energized to your class, and they are going to get better grades. Your skills are going to be better. So I think that once you have the trust of the students, and if you could let your school trust you that your grades are totally not going to suffer, I think it's just the first year. Once they know you're getting this, you're never going to be asked this again. So, you know, I would just say, ask them to give you a chance.
Thank you, ma'am. The question
I hope that works. Yeah.
Sorry, ma'am. I mean, please carry on. I was sorry to cut you short.
No, that wasn't.
So many questions just pouring in. So there's another wonderful question from Supritha. How can we create an inclusive classroom environment that caters to students of different abilities and incorporates their creative thoughts to ensure everyone learns?
Yeah, so this was a similar question to the one before. So I think out of your magic box, if along your different units, you pull out different kinds of activities, it will appeal to one set or the other. You know, I'm not saying that this activity is going to be miraculous for two students, but those two students will be totally in a different zone when you do something else. Sorry. So the more varied your kind of, you know, your creativity is, different people get roped in at different times. So I've known that whenever I've got an email, they've all different students have pointed to a different activity. So they resonated with a different thing. So you have to be as varied as possible.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Another very interesting question.
Yeah.
How do I put laughter in my lesson plans, yet stay on track with my syllabus? This is from Surya.
So I think it's really important to have conversations. So if your style as a teacher is more conversational, and I think if you leave the atmosphere to, yes, there's going to be some goofy things that are going to happen along the way. You cannot put laughter in a lesson plan. It just has to go with the flow. There has to be some parts where you're like, everyone's laughing their head off because it was something so creative or so funny or something that resonated with the topic. But be careful that it doesn't sidetrack you, because you need to stay focused on the idea and complete your unit as well. So you can't put it in a lesson plan. You just need to be more relaxed and allow different comments from your students. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
That's what I
would. There's another question from Maimuna. Since we are in a 21st century classroom, what should be our approach to the learners of today's generation?
Oh, I think that they can teach us a thing or two. I think that there is no harm in I think in fact it's a good thing if a teacher goes and says, you know what, I think you guys are better at this particular thing than I am. So maybe you should take the floor and maybe you should handle this class today. So I think that I've always told them that I need to learn as much from you as you would from me. And I have learned a lot. You have to not be always in control, I think. You could let some students who are much, much better at some things to explain things to you. So I think learn the skills from them would be the best thing to go with. Because there's so many times they've said, let's do this as a meme, maybe this has never occurred to me, but I would be like, okay, how do we do this? Explain, make the whole thing possible for me. Let me know how to assess it. Let me know how to present it. And they would do it and they can tell you, let's do this assessment this way today. So yeah, I would say go with what ideas they have. You will finish your syllabus. I know. I know. Most teachers are worried, like, what are you saying? But we have all this huge quantum to finish. But believe me, you will finish it. I have taught the Delhi board. I've taught other boards. I've taught IB. I've taught ASA level. You will finish it. You will have time to do all of this, because then students are so motivated that they come prepared. You see, half your time goes in saying, do you recall this? Do you recall that? But they're already there because they have done all of this at home. And, there's, the teacher really likes these new ideas. So they are all reading all the time, So, yeah, I mean, not reading your text, but reading other things. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. I think the questions are pouring in. In the interest of time, we'll take 2 more questions.
Okay.
So the question comes from Nasreen. Several times I have asked my class to create their own questions for the assessment following a given format. And few selected questions are used in the assessment, and I wrote their name at the end of the question. Will you call it a good idea?
Fantastic. Fantastic. I would say add one more thing. If you are teaching the Cambridge board and you know the different skills for your syllabus, ask them, label those boxes as knowledge with understanding, analysis, evaluation, and ask them to put the question in different boxes. So they even know which skill that question is mostly demanding. I know that you have to put all of it in, but is it a define question? Is it an evaluate question? Is it a discuss question? Great idea. Just add on to it and put it in different boxes. And when you pull it out, you're like, okay, guys, you see, this is the skill that this question is asking. So the kids even know it themselves. Yeah, absolutely. Please do this. This is brilliant.
Thank you, ma'am. Another question from Papsara. Dear ma'am, some of my students are not responsive. How can I make them speak during a session?
Okay, so this, I have to tell you from so many years of experience that some students are reticent, okay? And that's their personality. So I think you do your best, but I know that I have written in report after report that, somebody doesn't contribute in class. And I know at a parent-teacher meeting, their parents said, but this is the comment I've been getting since she was in kindergarten. So at some point, you have to know that some people are not comfortable. So try and make it as comfortable as, without making them feel, oh my God, everybody is looking at me. Maybe you can have a conversation in the corridor. You can meet them later on, so that the spotlight is not on them in the class. But sometimes it's their personality. I think just meeting them somewhere else and asking them their opinion is better than in class, because they're just shy or they're reticent. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. I will take the final question for today, although I have to thank everyone for sharing so many questions. So the question is, how can we address challenges like distractions and disruptions to ensure a focused environment for creative learning?
Right. Make sure that you are still sticking to what it is that the topic was about. So you have to make a judgment call. You have to let a few threads go, because that's how the next creative idea comes up. But if you realize that, oh, this is just a time wasting tactic, they're like, they're going off in a different, then you have to say, hey, guys, we are doing this today. Okay, so focus on this and bring them back. So I would say it's a judgment call. Allow some strands to go through, but not all. You have to finish what you have to do within that time period. So I think that just comes from experience. I'm going to go with the pro C, it takes that many years to figure that out. You're going to make a few mistakes, but yeah, that's okay. So, yeah.
So thank you everyone on a Friday evening for joining in and being so proactive. I mean, 260 plus members joining in and asking questions, responding, appreciating, reacting, everything galore. So thank you so much. Like I said, there will be a follow-up session soon, subject to ma'am's availability. And
Sure.
Ma'am, the session success is when audience members keep asking when is the follow-up happening, and that has been a recurrent question throughout this session. So thank you, ma'am, for doing this in spite of not being in the country and from a different time zone and accommodating so many of our requests. Thank you so much for being so patient. And most importantly, ma'am, thank you for demystifying the whole notion of creativity and innovation, because we needed to scale it down, I feel, because
Scale
it
it
has
down.
become a
Yeah.
very esoteric kind of a concept. You brought it down to the level where it becomes very possible for teachers to implement in the classroom. So thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. All of us are going back with learnings, I hope. And thank you everyone once again. And we'll soon have a follow-up session to this when time permits for ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Right.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. And thank you, everybody. It would have been great to see everyone and really have, a hands-on thing. But yeah, this was the best week, the online. And thank you, Priyanka, and this forum. I think it's a great initiative, and looking forward.
Thank
to
you,
it.
everyone. And
Thank you.
please do check out the Teachers of Tomorrow platform and register yourself, because you will get access to all the recordings like today's webinar also on that platform, along with a lot of sharing of ideas and collaboration. Thank you, everyone.